Hello everyone, my name is Jun. I repair watches as a hobby. I appreciate you watching my video. This is my new vintage watch from the 1970s. I bought this for everyday use, but as of now, it doesn't run. And the case back is badly scratched. Maybe the previous owner tried to remove the engraving and it didn't go well. In this video, I will fix the movement and make the case look better for daily use. Let's get started. When I'm opening the case, I noticed a service record on the case back. This watch had been serviced at some point in the past. This is the Omega 1010 movement produced about 50 years ago in 1978. The Omega 1000 movements are generally undervalued compared to the 1960s Omega 500 movements. One reason for that would be Omega used plastic parts a lot with the movement in the 1970s. This watch may be a good example. A plastic movement ring is used instead of case clamps. This was my first time dealing with a case like this, so I struggled with removing the movement from the case. I removed the automatic winding unit and released the power from the mainspring. I also removed the stem, but the movement didn't come out of the case. I couldn't find out how to disassemble this watch, so I decided to try to access a movement from the dial side. I inserted a knife into the slit and removed the bezel. Removing the glass was another challenge on this watch. The plexiglass had lost its flexibility and it was sticking to the case. It took quite a bit of force, but finally I was able to remove it without breaking it. I removed the hands and finally I succeeded in taking the movement from the case. The plastic ring was tightly attached to the movement, so it could not be removed unless the movement was removed from the case. Now we can work on the movement. I'm dismantling the movement and figuring out why it didn't run. I inspected the balance wheel and it was good inside. The next part is the pallet fork. it came out with the bridge. This is not a good sign, and from my experience, it's a sign that the movement is getting dirty. I also inspected the wheel train. I didn't see any damage on the wheels, so I tried winding the mainspring. But the wheels didn't spin smoothly. The oil may be gone or become sticky, preventing it from spinning. The maintenance record on the case back is dated 30th January 58, and it must be in the Japanese calendar since I bought this watch in Japan. 58 indicates Showa 58 or 1983 in the Gregorian calendar. If you buy a vintage watch from Japan, you may see such a date. The Japanese calendar is based on the number of years the emperor has been in power. Nowadays, even Japanese people don't use the Japanese calendar so much because it is difficult to understand. But anyway, it was widely used in the past. That means this watch has never been serviced for decades. Judging by the serial number, this movement was produced in 1978 and serviced 5 years later in 1983. That must be the last maintenance, and it's already more than 40 years ago. So it makes sense that this watch didn't run. This movement is not broken. It just needs cleaning and lubrication. Alright, take a look at the movement. I removed many parts from the movement. We need to remove this tiny pinion that transfers power from the other side to this side. It's so tiny. Not only the pinion, all the parts used in this movement are very small. That's a good thing because it allows the movement to be flat and thin. But at the same time, it does have a reputation for being more fragile than previous movements. I can somewhat agree with that, but as far as I know, if it is properly maintained, it should last for decades without issues. So you don't need to worry too much about it. Actually, the Omega 1000 movement is my favorite movement because it is a high quality Omega in-house movement that should run very accurately. It features automatic winding, sweep seconds, quick set date, and hacking functions. The accuracy and functionality are comparable to today's mechanical movements. It is still a bit expensive, but not overpriced. It never disappointed me. Alright, let's get back onto the video. There is a tiny ring here. Be careful not to lose it during cleaning. This is what's called a wig-wag pinion, and it has a nut for the screw. Many Omega movements have a service hole for the click spring. It is helpful to remove the spring safely. We can unlock the spring while keeping it down with the screw. Omega 1010 is the base grade model and it has 17 jewels. There are no jewels used in this automatic winding unit. An elaborated model such as Omega 1012 movement has more jewels, like 23 jewels in total. And the additional jewels are used in this unit. That means the additional jewels don't improve the basic watch performance. Opening the mainspring barrel is a bit tricky. We can use a knife to open it. I would say it was designed to make it thin, ignoring maintainability. This is a critical part on this movement that is to be cleaned and lubricated. This is the cannon pinion of the movement. If it is not serviced properly, it can damage other parts, particularly this pinion, when you setting the time. So we must service the parts. And removing the cannon pinion is very tricky. I recommend using a staking tool with a pin. Insert and press a pin down carefully until the pinion has been removed. After the cleaning, they should be greased before reassembly. This is very important. I completely took the movement apart. Let's start cleaning. The case was a bit rusty, so I removed the rust. I did some pre-cleaning for key parts. I used a pegwood for gels and I used a brush to remove old oil from plates. For cleaning, I use a professional grade watch parts cleaner with an ultrasonic cleaner. Such a cleaning solution is a bit expensive, but the result is better than other alternatives from my experience. It might be better to use a watch rinsing solution, but to save on costs, I use water and isopropyl alcohol instead. I dried the parts under a cover for a few hours. We cannot use IPA for the pallet fork and the balance wheel, so I use benzene instead. Alright, all parts are cleaned and waiting for assembly. I started assembling the mainspring barrel. I put a tiny amount of the mainspring grease and reinstalled the mainspring. I installed the rubber and I closed the lid. I lubricated the barrel rubber from the both sides. For the cannon pinion, I greased it before reassembling it. Now I'm assembling the barrel bridge, starting with installing the click spring and assembling the click. Next, I assembled the crown wheel. Normally, the crown wheel is installed after the barrel bridge is attached to the base plate. But in this movement, it needs to be pre-assembled before the bridge is attached. Because the wig-wag pinion needs to be secured with a nut from the bottom side. This is the nut to secure the screw. I tested if the wig-wag wheel could move smoothly. I'm assembling the automatic winding unit. I made a mistake here. I put the wheel upside down. It might be a common mistake when servicing this movement. Even if you placed it upside down, it will still rotate. But of course, it doesn't work as expected. Anyway, I had to disassemble it and do it over again. I will notice the mistake at the very last step. Be careful not to make the same mistake. I lubricated the pivots on both sides. Moving on to assembling the base movement. This movement has a friction spring for the center pinion. I lubricated the stem and installed it. The spring must keep the pinion in place with tension. Otherwise, the second hand doesn't sweep smoothly. I lubricated the hole for the mainspring and installed the mainspring. When placing the barrel bridge, the wig-wag pinion must be parked on the mainspring side so that it can engage with a hidden spring on the base plate, like that. Assembling the wheel train is my favorite part of watch maintenance, especially when working on this sort of high quality movement. All wheels are perfectly self-aligned. It's very satisfying. This is a part to stop the movement when setting the time. It is plastic, but I've never seen any trouble with the part. I put the wheel train bridge and placed it in the position. I installed the ratchet wheel, but I noticed the click was not assembled correctly. It should mesh with the ratchet wheel, but not. So I fixed it and checked again to see if the wheels would mesh with each other. Then I lubricated the jewels on both sides. This cannon pinion must be installed without grease. Now I'm assembling the winding mechanism. This is the Omega 1010 movement. That is an improved version of the Omega 1000 movement. The basic design looks the same as the previous version, but Omega redesigned most parts for the upgrade. We need to consider them as completely different movements. For example, even a winding stem is redesigned with a slightly different dimension, and it is incompatible with the previous one. When sourcing replacement parts, be careful to purchase the correct one. There are two springs used for the mechanism. A long one is the yoke spring, used under here, and the short one is the setting spring, used in here. I greased all the contact points and put all the pieces into place. I removed excess grease using Rodico and tested the setting motion. Let's return to the back side and start up the movement. I installed the pallet fork and pallet bridge, making sure the pivot is in the place before tightening the screws. We don't need to lubricate the pivots. I lubricated only the pallet stone of camera. Installing the balance assembly is the most exciting moment in watch repair. Let's see. We succeeded in bringing back to life. I'm removing the Inca block from the balance cock to clean and lubricate the jewels. As you can see, this balance cock has a screw for regulator. We can easily adjust the rate precisely using the screw. I put a tiny amount of oil on the top gel and reinstalled it in the balance cock. I did the same with another Inca block on the other side. Then I installed the automatic winding module. Interestingly, there is a manual winding version of this movement, the Omega 1030 movement. It doesn't have this automatic winding module. That's only the difference. The last thing that needs to be done with the movement is to assemble the calendar and time display mechanism. I'm placing many wheels for that. The center wheel, minute wheel, date indicator driving wheel, the intermediate wheel, and the hour wheel. I checked the motion, then placed the upper part of the date indicator driving wheel. Installing the date indicator needs attention. We need to be careful not to let the spring fly away. I covered them with the plate and applied a small amount of oil to the teeth of the indicator. I want to make the watch look nice. It has some scratches from age. It's okay, but I want to refinish the case back to remove the engraving and scratches. I used a sanding paper and metal polish. This is the result. Generally, I don't mind scratches from age, but this time I did polish it to make it look perfect. Since this is a genuine Omega plexiglass, I want to reuse it, but there are some deep scratches on it. So I removed them using a sanding paper and plastic polish. I attached the glass to the case and also installed the bezel using a hand press tool. It now looks much better than before. The dial has some minor damages on the edge, but overall it looks pretty good considering its age. I did nothing for that. Since it has a hack feature to stop hands when setting time, it is easy to install hands precisely. I set the time at 0 o'clock at midnight and installed the hour and minute hand and the second hand. If the second hand doesn't sweep smoothly, you may need to adjust the friction spring for the center pinion. This time there was no problem. I'm installing the movement into the case with the spacer ring, but it didn't go well. First, the automatic winding rotor didn't wind the mainspring. It was because I installed the driving gear upside down, as I mentioned earlier. I fixed it. Also, the movement ring must be attached to the movement before casing it. Then we can press the movement into the case. I did the final test before closing the case. This case uses a special gasket and I don't have a new one. I just reused the old one for now. This is the finished watch. It's a really nice watch. Very reliable and beautiful. If you are looking for a vintage watch for daily use, I would highly recommend this Omega. Alright, that's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for always watching my video. See you next time. Bye bye.